Today on What Went Wrong, for love or money. Hi, I'm Brett Mauser, and I made over 40 feature films, and most of them have been for love. Not like for women or anything.
I got you.
But for the love of the film.
Right.
But I have done a couple for money. And even then,
for the love of money.
yeah, there you go.
No.
One of the stories I tell about the early days of Ponderous, we had gone to a conference, a video distribution conference in Vegas back in 2000, 2001. And I was able to sit down with some distributors of lower budget films and whatnot and ask them questions. And of course, the whole panel, or the whole audience of the panel, one of the most common questions was, what kind of movies are you buying?
Yeah.
And the answer was, well, at that time, Blockbuster stores were still open and everything like that as well. Latino action films and horror films. So I said, well, I'm going to double down on that. I'm going to make a Latino horror action drug film. And hence, Cartel Killers was born first, and then Barrio Angels, and hence our first paycheck.
Yeah.
So we went into that essentially looking and saying, hey, what's going to sell? And we made a film around what was selling at the time. I was still able to put my own twist on it. We had our Smokey in it. And It was goofy and had its moments. And I mean, it was a vampire of all things, so.
Because what could make more sense than a
Drug smuggling
vampire Latino
killer.
chicks on bikes thing, but a vampire, of course.
Well, because
El Vampiro.
Because I wasn't happy about the whole hot chicks on bikes thing. It's cool, but not me. I got to put something in there. I love juxtapositions. I love putting too much in. I love.
Oh, that was definitely too much.
Yeah, that was the straw. That was the straw and the camel. Well, right through the earth and all the way to China.
He's still falling.
So the question, and one of the things that we tell you to do on your, if you look back at what went wrong, some of the first ones, we say what you have to do before you make a movie is ask yourself, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
Why am I making a movie? Am I making it because there's something I want to say, and I just want to tell a story, I want to do something artistically, or are you doing it to make money? And that comes down to understanding that there is a difference between going out and making an art film and making a money film.
Yeah.
You hear it all the time. Hollywood actors get their nut on the big big film, and then that lets them go and make a little art house film, the kind of movie they want to make.
Right.
Same thing for a filmmaker.
Yeah.
If that's the road you want to take. Do a movie that's going to be able to pay your bills, and then you can make a movie that you want to make.
Right.
But understand that there is a difference, and when you're going
Big
out,
difference.
yeah, and when you're going out and making a movie that you want to make because you want to see it and you want to tell it, don't get upset when nobody wants to see it.
Right.
Nobody wants to watch it. Nobody's going to pay you anything for it. When you decide that it's going to be an art film or it's going to be a money film, that's going to determine every other aspect of your project. If you've got no money to make the film, go ahead and make your art movie.
Yeah.
Because without the money to get a name in it, you're not going to make money on the movie.
Right.
And you're going to have to make decisions script-wise, lighting-wise, sound-wise, camera guy-wise, based on whether you want to make money or not.
Art house films. I can't honestly say I've ever seen an art house film.
Well, an art house film isn't necessarily, gay cowboys eating pudding. It's not necessarily, coating yourself in whipped cream and running around and experimenting with, all sorts of techno music and flashy lightings. It's not necessarily experimental. An art house.
When you say it's not necessarily, are you saying that that's what they do in these art house films?
Well, there was a South Park episode when they were making fun of, I think, Brokeback Mountain. And how it did really well I think South Park held their first annual film festival, and that was and Gay Cowboys Eating Pudding was the film.
I remember that now. Yeah.
Was the film that everybody was raving about.
Gay Cowboys.
But the
only two gay cowboys in existence were in that movie, I think.
Today they would be considered art house films, I think. But if you look at the 60s, 70s, and 80s, they started dying out in the 90s. And Hollywood started just focusing on the big blockbusters. But you'd have the big blockbuster movies, hundreds of millions of dollars, and then you could make a $5 to $7 million True Romance, or a $7,000 to $9,000 Cobra. I don't know the actual budgets of these, but I'm giving you the examples how you'd have the small
LA
action
Story
films.
and stuff like that.
Yeah, you'd have the little romantic comedy, or just the straight comedy, or the lower budget action film. It still made it to theaters. The Die Hards, which probably had a pretty large budget, but there were a lot of action films that were just, especially the sci-fi genre.
And the ninja movies back in the day, the 80s ninja movies.
Yeah, they still made them into the theaters, and they were made for $5 to $15 million. I probably said 1,000 a couple times there, but $5 to $15 million. But they gross $5 to $10 million, or not even anything at all. But they that money that was made up by, and you get the critics raving about them. So they weren't just the films that you only see at the Maya or the foreign films or whatever. So I would kind of throw those in there.
I got you.
I don't think a Quentin Tarantino would come about today because he has such a unique vision and style, and he wouldn't make a Marvel film. I mean, he probably would, but I mean, it wouldn't be what Marvel wanted. Or maybe he'd make it really well, but we wouldn't have that Tarantino film. You watch a Tarantino film, you know it's a Tarantino.
I mean, most closest thing would be like Kill Bill. That would be the closest thing to a Marvel movie he could come up with. I get that. And I don't like movies anyway for the most part, and so even the blockbusters anymore, just bleh. So I mean, you'd have to have. Yeah, I mean, you're not going to make the same amount of money on a Gay Cowboys Eating Pudding as you'll make on Transformers eating pudding. I mean the Transformers are going to be.
I just got this picture of Optimus Prime with one of those little
Autobots
pudding cups.
Eat pudding. I can't do his voice obviously, but yeah, I mean just you're going to have Bob Famous Guy and Josie Famous Girl in art house movie doing art house movie things, as opposed to a Transformer movie which looks like if you blew up a kitchen and threw it into the air. I mean, some of the action scenes are just completely unintelligible, but it's cool and loud and big and explosions and and everyone wants to see that except me. And so yeah, I could see that. I mean, there are some, I would call them, not art house, but I mean some horror movies that I like that are kind of indie.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even films like Halloween were shot on an extremely small budget.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be done today.
I like some of the Japanese horror stuff I've seen, which then turned into the bigger Hollywood versions, of course, with 30, 40, 50, $100 million budgets, whereas the Japanese would do it for much less. And then the Americans get a hold of it. It's like $1 million budget. Oops, knocking this stuff up. It's $1 million budget, and there's all this flashy stuff and explosions, and I'm like, but the cheap version, the art house version, was so much better. And so in that case, I could totally see preferring something like that. Not necessarily a horror show, which I love. I love the scary movie, not the slasher stuff. We talked about that. But I like the scary stories. I like the creepy stories around a campfire. I love those. I always loved those as a kid. You've got all the superhero movies and Batman, Spider-Man. Is there art in it? I would consider some of the puns used by Arnold Schwarzenegger and Batman 4 or whatever it was. That was arty.
There's an art to puns.
There's an art to puns. And so that's just money grab. That's just money. That's just, they want some cash. There's no, are they doing it because they love it?
Yeah. Well, that's something that you have to consider when it all comes back to, and I can't emphasize this enough, is when you're getting ready to make your film.
Yeah.
You have to know what you're in it for.
Yeah.
Because that allows you. It makes it a lot easier to make decisions. Yeah. It really does, because when you're sitting there on set and something comes up and something pops up and you're like, do I go left or do I go right? You have to understand what audience you have. If you're in it for the money, you got to do what audiences want, as opposed to subverting their expectations.
That's a different problem. In that case, you've gone past art or money, and you've gone to message. And with that, you're going to have neither art nor money, as those movies, everything from all 3 Star Wars movies, which made a lot of money, but not the money they should have made. And now all the Disney movies lately have flopped because they're doing message instead of the last Marvel movie. What was Spider-Man did well. What was the one before that? Nighthawk or something like that. That didn't do well.
Yeah, the Hawkeye.
The Hawkeye, Black Hawk, whatever the hell it is.
Oh, Black Widow.
Black Widow was horrible.
The Eternals was
that's
the
one.
Bombed. Yeah, that's the one that really bombed.
It just absolutely bombed because they're no longer doing.
Well, the Spider-Man one was all fan service.
Right.
They brought back the Spider-Man the previous Spider-Man. That's what everybody wanted to go see. They gave it to them.
Which is why Mandalorian did so well. Because once again, watching the reviews, everything, all the people who were watching, who were the reactions, all the reaction videos. The guys kept saying, this is exactly what I wanted to see. This is what I wanted to see. Thank you, Dave Filoni. This is what I wanted to see. They wanted to see Ahsoka Tano. They wanted to see Bo-Katan. They wanted to see Boba Fett. And by the way, the guy playing Boba Fett, the dad Boba Fett, much more terrifying than ever he was in the original. But that's what people wanted to see. People wanted to see Boba Fett be a badass. And Boba Fett is freaking terrifying. If Boba Fett was, but that's the fan service. So they're showing the fans what they want. When Luke Skywalker shows up, they're giving the fans what they want. That's how you make the money, is you give the people what they want. If you want to do subverting expectations, if you want to do messaging, well, you could spend all this money, but you're not going to make any money. So even as an independent filmmaker, you can make a film that would make money or could do well, but understand if you're making a message that only a very select few people want to see, it's going to do even less, And that's one of the problems. I wish Hollywood, hopefully they're starting to figure it out, because they can only do this so many times before the money train runs out. I don't know how many more bad movies Disney can make, because Disney's already lost $8 billion last year and about the same this year. And the only thing that they're doing that is doing anything at all is Mandalorian. Now their hotel is failing because they're not giving people what they want. So they're trying to do the art without knowing what the people want the art to be. And even in your art films, you can make an art film that makes money.
But you got to keep the budget low.
You got to keep the budget low,
thinking you're going to be making this.
Exactly. You give the people what they want on a low budget. You can make the cool little art film. Okay. I don't know what that would be. If you're like, let's say you want to do a Star Wars movie where, Luke Skywalker shows up and he's an absolute badass. I don't know. Whatever it is, something that people want to see. And so you've got the art film, which are relatively cheap and relatively existential in certain respects.
It makes like I guess people would say the Paul Anderson films. Is it the Paul Thomas Anderson. I always confuse him with the Resident Evil guy, the Anderson, who made Bill Murray's in a lot of his films.
Right.
I can't. None are coming out. I can see the cover boxes. I can't think of the damn names right now.
Like Lost in Translation.
That wasn't one of them, but yeah, movies like that where people will go see them, and you can get these big names attached because they're a unique film, and they like the look of them, or they want to work with this director, but you keep those costs low, and then when it only makes $15 to $20 million, and you've doubled your money, good on you.
Yeah,
that's the way to do it.
That's the way to do it. So you can have the smaller, less explosive films that may not be something that people want to see. Like, you're not going to have Boba Fett, you're not going to have Star Wars, because those are big names. But you can still have a good story that people watch and go, huh, that's cool, And then, and so the way that gets out is you kind of have it. People will talk about this film. And people who love those films love those films. It's like people who love the Serial Rabbit. People who love Serial Rabbit are freaking psychopaths. They really love Serial Rabbit. And so you're going to have people who go to see Bill Murray in Lost in Translation, which just shows how bad crazy Japan can be, because Japan is anyway. And there's no big, there's no machines duking it out in the middle of the thing. There's no kaiju and Godzilla bashing the crap out of each other. That's not happening. But it's a cool film about a society that is very foreign and how a person could feel lost in that society. And then it's even more of an expression how no matter what society you're in, even if you're in your own, you could feel lost. And as long as you have someone else there, it helps you out. And then you can have the cool art films that are like the Japanese horror movies turned into American horror movies. And so where it's the creation of the spectacle and the fear and the cool stuff, and they mirror each other, and they're not like huge massive blockbusters as far as like the $300 million budgets, but they're expensive, $50-60 million, and they'll make $120-150 million. Okay, and then you have the ones on this side, the superhero movies, the Iron Man, the Star Wars, the Star Treks, the everything exploding and loud noises, and take your earplugs to the thing, and they'll put it on IMAX. You're never going to see Lost in Translation on IMAX. It's not going to happen. You're never going to see the Japanese art, or the plays that they just kind of happen to film. That's not going to be an IMAX. But Terminator, the next generation, and
because you want to get hit by the shrapnel.
You want to get hit by the shrapnel, stuff exploding, and Optimus Prime's going to kill someone, and Autobots roll. Everyone screams and yells, And so those are the things you're going to have on those. And those are all different genres. And they somehow can have some mixing. Like you can have the art, you can have the big explosions, and meet them somewhere in the middle for certain movies. Like Schindler's List and Last Emperor, and some of these movies. Memphis Belle, some of those movies where they're arty and they're, there's heart and a huge cast and all that kind of stuff. The Last Samurai,
Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead.
Exactly. And then you're going to have, Much Ado About Nothing with Kenneth Branagh and Denzel Washington and Keanu Reeves. Yeah.
But the sad thing is those movies aren't being made anymore.
Yeah.
Because we all, we're all just going to watch the biggest blockbuster.
Yeah.
On our streaming now.
Yeah.
Now
no reason to even go to a movie theater anymore.
Yeah. Now I'll give the best advice this show has probably ever given. I'm just going to lay it out for you. It's how to do this. Mm-hmm. If you want to make a movie that you want to make, if you like for me, second last. Well, I'm going to basically any of my movies, but let's say Second to Last Worst Day of My Life. All takes place in one house, maybe a couple scenes here and there. If you want to make a movie that you just want to make and have fun with it, then you and some of your buddies get a few $100, maybe $1,000 each, throw it into the movie and make your movie. And then see what you can sell. But don't put any more than $10,000 into it. And then just sell it over the next 5 or 10 years. A couple copies here, a couple copies there, and you'll probably come away with a little bit of money in your pocket. And then I'm talking just starting out. If you're just starting out, just do that. If you've got to go after the money, then you've got to get enough money to put a name in it. Because you're not going to get, if your mind is set on a superhero movie or some big blockbuster popcorn style movie, and you want it to sell, and that's why you're doing it, you've got to have enough money for a couple names because nobody's going to watch it otherwise. And you got to have the money for the special effects, and you got to have enough money for the visual effects, and all of that.
It's a little more than $1,000 a person.
Yeah. And you're gonna need a company that does this normally in investing in these types of films, and it's going to be a lot of hard work, a lot of big groundwork. You're going to be spending 5 years just trying to find the money for this. Those 5 years, you could be making a bunch of your second to last worst days of your life. If you want to make some money with no money, then you got to start with a horror film. Because that's your best bet at making money.
Yeah.
Horror movies are just always going to sell. And most of your money is going to go into fake blood and some prosthetics that you can get at a Halloween store. But if you do it right, light it well, have good acting, you're going to have a movie that can sell. And maybe you will be that $1 million sleeper hit that gets you set for life.
John Carpenter started making these little crappy things that were just piece of shit films.
But you've got to go with history.
Yeah.
And history says if you have no money and no name, you got to make a horror film. And yes, there's going to be the outliers here and there, but I'm talking about historically speaking, and you're playing your best odds. Right. You're playing your best odds. You got to make a horror movie. Otherwise, those are your three options, basically. If you want to make money and you have no money or a name, horror film. If you want to make money and you can get some money to make the movie, do that. But it's going to take you five years to do that. Yeah. In the meantime, you're blowing all that time. You could be taking just a few $1,000s here and there and making your tags, making your Lady Lawman, making your second to last worst day of your life. Look at what we made Lady Lawman for. And that's a damn good movie. Mm-hmm. And we made our money back. Not much after that, but we at least made our money back.
But it's not done yet. That's the thing about Lady Lawman, or about any movie you have, is you have created something that if you've done your homework, as they say, and if you've studied and you kind of tapped into what people want, then you could see that you know what you need to make in order to make what you need to make, okay? And you make it, and then you take what you've created, and you have to put it places where people want to see it. And timing is good too. Why not make a Halloween movie? I don't know, and Halloween, and make sure it's in everything where it needs to be by October 1st. Put it in whatever else. But you have to be able to understand what it is you're after, and then how to do that. And your advice is right on, dead on.
Yeah, you're not, as much as it hurts to say, you're not special. Do what people have done in the past with your own spin, and you'll be all right.